Hello everyone. First of all, Happy New Year to all. And first of all, our host from Računalniški Muzej, Marko, will tell us some words.
English? Yes. Sure. So, welcome also in my name. I'm Marko Štancar. I'm part of the Computer History Museum Society. Welcome to our place. We are a volunteer non-profit organization which has existed since 2004 and is here to remind people about the digital heritage and to conserve the heritage. Our collection, which is partially viewed from the basement when you need to visit the restrooms, consists of more than 1,000 items from hardware, software, and also magazines, and of course games and gaming systems. In the following weeks, we will not only put together the first exhibit on the main floor and have a grand opening of the museum, but also build a network of, I mean, this is literal translation because I have it in Swedish. We will build a cooperation of educational and fun programs for all ages and backgrounds of visitors. We do not want to be a dusty old museum. We want to be a museum where you can experience our exhibits, where you can learn stuff. We want to enter your lives and be a place for new experiences and to meet old and new like-minded people. We are also considering making a gamification of our exhibits, so it will be an interactive experience. We will have an arcade room in the basement, which will be available for birthdays and such. We also want to be a meeting place of programs of different third-party event exhibitors, and this first floor here is dedicated to education and exchange of ideas, to host events such as yours. This is the fourth event this week already, and we are not even open yet, officially.
And it's Thursdays.
Yes. I would like to wish you a successful meetup today, and would just like to mention that we accept members of the support type and accept donations for our purposes. We have the forms to join as a support member of the society at the table in the back, and we will be very happy if you will consider supporting our activities. There is also, I will stand there then, and we can discuss if you have questions regarding how you can support us. So that is all from my side, and now back to you. Thank you.
And before I announce our speaker today, I just want to do a quick recap of 2019 and plans for 2020. So in 2019 we had 12 meetups, 4 game jams, and there were like 89 participants on all the game jams, and they did like 24 games, and we had like one really huge and amazing conference. And for the next year there will be again the same plan, 12 meetups, 4 game jams, and one conference, and the team is already like making plans for the conference. And also, on top of that, there will be also Maribor meetups, which will happen for Maribor aside from Ljubljana. And Primož is also making his game dev business course. And there is also one idea to have more like casual like meetups in a form of game dev pub quiz nights. So I'm looking forward to that. And for today, we have Franci Zidar, CEO of Loco Games, and today he will tell us something about games that actually move you, and about VR and AR technology, and the challenges and designs that you face when you're developing such a games. So give an applause for...
Thank you. Support camera.
And thank you very much. And after the talk, first round is on Game Slovenia in Kino Šiška.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to organizing it, to Primož for connecting, to Marco for facilitating the whole thing. I hope I have the names right. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Loco Games, but I'm not here in that capacity today, I think, at least. I'm mostly here as a tech enthusiast and a gamer, because I love this kind of stuff. And you know, it's been a long journey, like over the past 10 years in this location-based gaming, AR, VR. Like I've played with the first Kinect and done a lot of different things that never made business sense, but were just super exciting to me as somebody who gets excited a lot about like new tech opportunities. So that's basically what this talk is all about. It was kind of a nice opportunity for me to reflect back on those 7-8 years. And figure out maybe why I was interested in it, what's the things that I did right, or what's the opportunities that are now kind of emerging out of that, because some exciting stuff are happening. But yeah, like initially, I just want to again, because I was thinking about why I was so mesmerized by this idea of bringing games to the real world, and then I realized basically that I really enjoyed playing a bunch of different role-playing games as a kid, like Monkey Island, and a bunch of them are over there actually. So Little Big Adventure, then Normality. I don't know if you know this one; it was a weird one, but I really liked it. And the last, most recent one, I guess, was The Longest Journey, out of those pretty old ones. Like every one of those games had amazing worlds and characters and stories, and it seemed like an exciting idea to try to bring those concepts and all of that into the real world. And with AR and VR and being everything on mobile and location based, basically like all of those tech checkboxes that were ticked over the past 10 years, it seemed like the right time to try to do something like that, right? Well, it turns out it's harder than you might think like initially, or the knee-jerk reaction that there was when the first AR stuff started happening and all that. But still, it's something that I think is worth pursuing, and maybe like today, in some aspects, is maybe more doable than in others because of reasons that I will explain as we go along. Also, if anybody wants to interrupt me or anything like that, it's a pretty small group, so feel free to do that. It's awesome if this is like an interactive session, although being in Slovenia, I don't expect you guys to talk too much, but if you do want to, just shout out. That's all right. I love that, by the way. So yeah, I'm the co-founder of Proxima, which is a studio, like a small software dev studio. Then my first venture basically was Nexto, which I'll explain in a minute. And then the more recent thing is Loco Adventures, which is specifically a kind of a location-based gaming platform. Some of the views that I have to talk about here or whatever are just views, like their opinions, because all of this is super fluid, especially when you talk about AR and VR and location-based. There's a lot of opinions and a lot of successes and failures and so on. So it's one of those things that's hard to have any definitive answers on. So if you disagree or whatever, again, just shout out. It's awesome to have a discussion more than I'm just kind of a conduit for that. Yeah. So first of all, Nexto, it's a platform we started about 7 years ago. Again, this will be like a brief overview of what we've been doing. So you get a bit of a context of where my kind of positions come from. It's a platform for engaging visitors on location. It's supposed to be like a V2 of the audio guide concept. The first iteration was basically a smart audio guide app that basically triggered audio guide or audio clips based on your location, and then kind of evolved into something that's a bit more modern, that's supposed to talk to modern audiences and engage them where they are, which is on mobile devices. And we kind of thought of this cool way of actually conveying information when you're on location through a chat interface. And it's not something that we completely thought of. Basically, there's this whole thing called chat fiction. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there's Yarn and Hook basically kind of pioneered this genre, which is basically storytelling in a chat format, right? So instead of reading a book or whatever, you get like one little clip of information, and then you request the next one. It's very like short form. It's kind of perfect for a modern consumer. Fun fact, at least Yarn crashed completely. It's now got like 1.6 score on Play Store because they tried to monetize the hell out of it and they just failed basically. So it's fun to actually look at these platforms over the past, I don't know, 4 years or something like that, and see like a huge success and now a huge failure basically, at least for Yarn. I think Hook is in a bit better, but still. So none of them basically managed to kind of transition into this, let's say, a more broadly used format for storytelling. But still, it's an interesting format, and for our case, which is basically when you're on location, you want to learn something, you might want to interact with a character, have some story told to you about the location, it seems still like a nice format. So this is what Nexto looks like today. It's got like obviously a map of locations. When you get there, you get this like chat interface, which is like pre-scripted, and there's a bunch of minigame options and also stuff happening in AR. Like my opinion of AR, or something that's evolved basically through, again, it's a fluid market or whatever, is that it needs to be done in small snippets today. It's really hard to have like a full AR experience where somebody, or you would expect somebody to actually walk around with a phone and look through the phone into the world. It's something that needs to be done in like small snippets. And in that case, it makes perfect sense. So if you are on location and you already have like a bunch of backstory, you're excited about the subject matter, and then you just see it pop like in front of you, that kind of makes sense to the as a product and as a use case basically, but not if you just would have like an app that would guide you through AR through the whole place, right? So that's kind of the way it works. We're currently like live in Slovenia in 45 destinations and now trying to break into foreign markets. We've won a couple of awards from Booking and also something from European Union. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it was nice. Because I actually learned about this from a third party. I didn't even know we were contestants, but anyway. So yeah, like a spin-off of that, during like building Nexto and actually kind of exploring whatever was going on, a bunch of like escape rooms and team building companies and agencies started approaching us that they would want to build like a treasure hunt-like experience on our platform. It's not what it was built for, so we started thinking about let's make a separate product that actually does that exactly. So that's what like Loco Adventures is. It's got kind of the same concept, right? You have pins on the map. It's like chapters of the story. You unlock the chapter by reaching the location, and then the story unfolds in this chat interface. Which here we've got like full-blown chat interface. Basically, it has like the writing indicators and all that stuff. So you actually feel like the Tin Man is writing to you, or it's cute and it's nice, and people really get it fast, which is the main point of like when you are at a location and want to maybe interact with it, you just don't want to go through the whole UI learning experience or whatever. So yeah, and then specific snippets of that happen in AR. So here you have like you have to save the scarecrow from the pole, or find the Oz hidden in a cave, or just see basically a cutscene of a house being blown away by a tornado, right? So again, small snippets of AR within a larger story. That's kind of how we see AR right now. And behind all that is this story builder, which is a tool that allows anybody to create these kinds of stories. We feel like it's pretty comprehensive, but obviously it's something that has a learning curve and allows people to create all sorts of different stories. The main thing though is that you should be able to deploy the same story to any location in the world. So it should be like location agnostic, right? It's not something that, like different from Nexto, for example, where you create a story for Ljubljana or for a museum in Ljubljana or something. Here you create a story that is generic in terms of location, and then it can deploy to any part or any city or something like that. So yeah, that's currently being like actively evaluated in terms of exactly which approach we want to take in terms of business, but the platform is there. Yeah, so that's it in terms of who I am, what's my background in terms of the products that we've built, and now I want to get to some important stuff regarding maybe like the next couple of chapters of the talk, specifically because again this is kind of it's emerging tech, so AR and VR, right? It's not something that's entirely sure how it's going to evolve and what's going to happen. And I think it's important for everybody who wants to kind of try and do something in it to be aware of two things. Like the first one is the hype cycle. If you're aware of it, then you know what it looks like. But basically, this describes very, very well how technology basically, yeah, I mean it's a hype cycle obviously. So how hype evolves, right? There's a technology trigger at the beginning, there's some tech that happens, either software or hardware, that kind of sparks imagination in everybody, what we're going to be able to do with this in 5 years, and then it explodes in terms of expectations and investments and all that stuff. And then obviously it's hard to get this to consumer grade, and it's plateaus and then falls steeply basically down to a gutter, to this trough of disillusionment, and then slowly gains again like mainstream acceptability and something that's actually ready for the mainstream. And this is what happened with AR, right? So there's like this technology trigger at the beginning, and it was this massive ramp up of interest and investment, and everybody was super hyped up about what AR could be. If you know the Magic Leap, right? There was this videos of the whales jumping in a gymnasium with a bunch of students around it. And it looked impressive, right? And everybody was, wow, that's going to be amazing. But obviously, I mean, if you think about it, that's not how it's going to go, right? Because for that, you need glasses and you need like insane tech to be able to provide for that kind of experience. So what remained of that hype is what we have in the trough of disillusionment, which is actually Snapchat filters, right? And I mean, funny or not, this is actually the main use case for AR today. Like, by a large margin, the most AR that's being consumed today is through Snapchat filters, and the most AR that's being used as a creative tool is through Snapchat filters. So Facebook is jumping on that wagon, and Instagram obviously now has that, but the Snapchat was kind of the origin story for that kind of a use case. So, yeah, this brings me to my next point, which is kind of a depressing, I guess, thought.
So where did you say we are now?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm kind of going for right now. So I think mobile AR is just a stepping stone, right? And it's super hard for me to actually say if mobile AR is here. I think that whatever is up here is just better Snapchat filters, right? It's not actually the whale or whatever, because the likelihood is that, or my prediction would be basically that it's going to take glasses and another 10 years to actually make AR into what it was like imagined 5 years ago, right? Which means that mobile AR will become something that's kind of a utility thing, maybe for measuring, or maybe for visualizing things like couches in your living rooms, or seeing shoes in your feet or stuff like that, but not like really enhancing your reality to a point that we all know it's kind of possible, right? But it's just not here today. So yeah, I would say that mobile AR is just a stepping stone, and that like there's no upcoming killer app for mobile AR. It's just maybe there's gonna be something akin to like the next. I wouldn't even want to say like the next Pokemon Go, because Pokemon Go is not really an AR app. It's everything else is the most important part. But the next thing that kind of breaks through and is branded as AR, right? There's probably going to be something, but it's not going to be as big, most likely, as it was imagined initially. So that's the first part that I think is important to consider when we think about these modern emerging technologies, right? That there's this hype cycle, and we should kind of evaluate where on that hype cycle technology is before we invest our time into actually building products and then trying things with it. Or maybe not, try things with it, whatever, but kind of think of it as a business opportunity. The next one is conservation of energy. And like this is weird, but this is super important for location-based stuff and for anything like, the title of the talk is the things that move us, right? Or games that move us. Like people don't want to be moved, right? People want to sit on their couches and play games that provide maximum satisfaction with the least possible investment of energy. And you know, that has been the case since forever. Like, computers are insanely efficient at transforming like small movements of the mouse into like big things that happen on a computer screen, right? Writing code that executes into amazing stuff kind of gives you the same feeling, right? You're really not wasting that much energy, but creating like insanely awesome stuff. So as soon as you start talking about like games that move us, and AR and VR and location-based and stuff like that kind of breaks that paradigm. So at that point, you have to move, and the value that you get, or the satisfaction that you get, has to be really disproportionately larger than anything else to actually, you know, get you to actually do that. So that's kind of the graph that shows that. But this picture maybe is a bit more appropriate. So it's, you know, a bunch of people on a train that's already reducing their energy investment because it's driving them from point A to point B, but then you're playing games and having a lot of fun, like making one tap and everything explodes and it's super exciting and it's amazing, and you're doing nothing, right? I mean, like physically you're doing nothing. So that's kind of what, that's one aspect of how games basically make us, you know, excited and how they provide value for us on a basic level. Obviously, there's a lot more in games that actually provide value, like storytelling, like game mechanics, but on a very fundamental level, that's it. And that's, again, something that's very much worth considering when you're thinking about games, you know, that move us. So this brings me to my next point, which is an important one. So I'm going to split these next two things into like AR and location-based. And then VR, and I'm going to focus a bit more on AR and location-based because obviously that's where I have a bit more experience, but also because I think it's worth like expanding a bit on some of the misconceptions or some of the, you know, problems or whatever that might actually pop up with that. And you know, kind of the interesting thing here is that this picture here is something that you would see when you would Google like AR and whatever, right? The only thing that's actually real about that, like whole image, is this over here, right? Everything else is just fake. And again, until we get there, it's going to be 10 more years. Right? Until we get to the point that you're going to have those glasses, that it's going to render at that fidelity, it's just going to take even more maybe than 10 years. So yeah, just take everything away and just, you know, have that hand, and it becomes a very gimmicky, boring thing, right? And then VR, on the other hand, actually does kind of feel like that. So, you know, if you're actually immersed into that world, if the design is good, if the experience is good, it actually does create a very like visceral, immersive experience that's like anybody that puts a headset on is not like a, you know, they are not going to take it lightly. It's just going to make an impact, which is nice, I think. So, a bit more specific things about AR that are currently a problem, that I know there are being solutions, I mean, already implemented or proposed or worked on, and you know, startups, very well-funded startups that are working on it. But one of the key issues, again, for the time being of mobile AR is this relocalization, right? It's very hard to actually create any kind of occlusion, to hide, you know, things behind objects. So very easily it creates a very poor, like, you know, this technical limitation becomes a user experience limitation very fast, because it creates just a bad user experience. Like if you don't place it perfectly where it should be, or, you know, ideally, if you don't have a marker, which is very often the case, then it's just not going to work as it's supposed to, or as you as a user would kind of expect it to work, right? So that's one technical limitation that immediately like makes it very very hard to fall in love with, right? Again, as a user, obviously as a developer too, but you know, the user's gone. So the other one is like shared AR, or you know, you could call them multiplayer. Another thing that's being worked on, it's kind of in progress, but it's very hard to actually get it right. There's a lot of things that have to work at the same time, and it's again, it kind of begs the question, what's the added value of actually having, you know, something like that work? But again, at this point, this is something that's one of the major issues in terms of AR, making it exciting for team play or for multiple people to actually work together. Another one is battery drain, which is going to remain the case because it's just, you know, it requires a feed of video through the phone, which I mean, at this point, if it's mobile AR. And it also needs to do all the processing in the meantime, which obviously means that the battery is going to die in a matter of hours. Like, and then the last technical limitation that I have here is that it still has very, like, even though obviously you have like libraries that kind of abstract away, integration and kind of if you have AR kit, it works on AR kit. If it has AR core, it works on AR core. I've now built enough apps using AR in all different situations that I know that there's still like an LG phone here and a Huawei phone here that just won't work. Or you'll just like spend 5 minutes trying to find a plane and then it just won't work. And again, it just results in a bad user experience. So point being, mobile AR, at the moment, still, Snapchat is like the best use case because face is very easy to map, like it's very easy to understand, and in mathematical terms, basically, it's very easy to evaluate where these are eyes, that's a nose, that's a mouth, and then put something on it, right? So other than that, it's hard to understand the world around us for a computer, especially a mobile processor, and that's going to remain the case for a while now. All right, so. Next up, we have UX limitations, and this one. So I've mentioned in the beginning that I've played with Kinect like 7-8 years ago. I've actually built an app for Leclerc or whatever. It was a screen that had it basically was a touchless UI with you had to stand in a specific spot and then you were navigating the map and the catalog or whatever. I spent like 6 months on it, days and nights. Because I wanted to make it perfect and everything, and then at the end, you put it in front of my mom or in front of my girlfriend or whatever, and they were just trying to navigate like this, and it just wouldn't work, obviously, because you didn't have enough like distance between yourself and the hand that you were waving and so on. And a similar thing happens in AR on mobile or in any kind of gesture system that is not like super high fidelity. So people are not going to just grab it and wave around and do whatever. People are shy for the most part, and if they don't have to, they won't really, or if it doesn't create enough value for them, they won't really interact with it in a very like outgoing way, right? So like one limitation is device handling, and this is a pose that nobody really wants to like be caught in. But when you're playing stuff like Pokemon Go or whatever, if you have AR on, which by the way, 15% of people actually have AR on in Pokemon Go, even less I think. So the other 90% basically have AR off and just play the game as it, I guess, should be played. So yeah, that's another limitation. And then the reliability that I've mentioned already, right? So it's super hard sometimes to get a plane, or it's super hard to just, make it work at all for a user, and you don't know, like, all right, so do I have like a detailed enough surface that has enough like edged corners or whatever, so it will actually, the device will understand that this is a plane or whatever. And there's people that I know that should know this, but they constantly try to show AR stuff on a background like this, or even worse, like a white wall or something. And it just won't work, right? It's impossible. So if people who should know that don't know that, how are your mom or dad don't know that? It's highly unlikely. So yeah, this brings us to this like effort versus value balance, right? Which is kind of the most important part here. So, are you creating enough value with what you're doing with AR that it kind of balances out the effort that it takes for people to engage with that content? For the most part, the answer to that is no, right? For most apps, that's just not the case. It's exciting for developers, it's exciting for product people to think about new stuff because it's just, it's new and it's different, and it does like make you wonder what all you could do with it. But it very rarely like balances out, that particular scale. So, what value does AR bring to the user? And then the next question: can this value be delivered without AR? I'll leave you with this while I drink, because this is actually like this was very revealing to me, because I saw this as an article or something. I don't know, 6 months ago or something. And then all of a sudden I had like a pop-up when I was in the US, oh, we've enabled to do AR in Google Maps. And I was, oh nice, awesome, I'm gonna try it out, right? And what ended up happening, and I was accidentally at the airport where I needed navigation, right? It was useless. So I ended up looking at this point here, because I had no idea where that was taking me. And that's basically the map, right? So, what kind of value am I getting if the view that I'm actually looking at is the bottom view, which is the actual map view? And then if I do try to look at this for, I don't know, 10 seconds or so, I get a warning: for your safety, keep your phone down while you walk. So then, what are you trying? What's the value you're trying to bring to me? You're asking me to put the phone down, but at the same time I have to, walk because obviously I'm going somewhere, but I can't use it. So I feel like this represents how AR is being misunderstood and misapplied on mobile, and how maybe, even though I appreciate Google trying this, obviously, it's insane that they can do that, just on a technical level. Just, honestly, on a user level, it's useless. So, yeah, I think we have to come to terms, or they, or whoever, come to terms with what AR on a mobile device can actually do for us. And it's not that much more than face filters, I'm afraid. Yeah, so ultimately the question becomes, how meaningful is this interaction between digital and physical? So does it add all that value that it should add, in order to kind of offset the balance of the effort that I have to put in to actually use it? So this brings me to my next point, which is kind of segmenting these apps into different categories and trying to just give a couple of examples of what those apps might look like and why they might be good or why not, right? So the one thing that I think AR has good use case on mobile is, and I've said it before, is utility, right? And if it works right, again, a big asterisk, if it works right, it could be awesome, right? You could measure a room, you could measure a desk, or there's situations where you need that and you don't have a measuring tape. That happens often. So that's something that actually could add some value. So that's basically the case that we have here, right? But that, again, if it does work, when it does work, and then also, because it doesn't tend to work often, you don't know if it worked, right? So it gave you a number back of how wide the table is or how high it is, but all right, I'm not sure if it worked, right? So again, there's a big issue of fidelity and being like trusting the tech to actually do it right? Same thing here. So these are kind of awesome use cases. Just show me your feet and I'll tell you the size of your foot, and then you're able to order it. So those are kind of all measuring stuff, but it's still something that is actually.
Did you try this?
No, I've tried the measuring one, but not the foot one. Yeah,
but the foot one of those was developed in our faculty as well.
Oh yeah? Yeah. Awesome.
For Kino.
How does it work?
They had to have A4 paper, black.
Like a marker.
Black sock, and then you could
awesome.
Actually scan it.
But the A4 basically gives you kind of a measure.
Yes, that's what you measure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea actually.
And it worked very well.
Awesome.
Like per millimeter.
Is it available on?
I'm not sure whether they use it later on, but okay. It was not developed in our laboratory, but in some other laboratory.
Nice. Yeah. That's a perfect case for AR, especially if you put it on a piece of paper. You know how high the paper is or wide, and that's awesome. That makes sense.
This is what I just wanted to ask. What was the reference for the size on this?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, this is something that I just took off of Google Images. I know there's a. I know it's an app. That much I know because I know people that have used it, but I haven't.
I would question the accuracy.
Yes, I would as well. That's my point, right? Again, the A4 paper makes perfect sense, right? So that's a very good use case, actually. Yeah, like a black sock and an A4. Yeah, that's actually awesome. And but again, when it comes to tech, as soon as you have a couple of requirements and so on, it's going to be used wrong, or the paper is going to be tilted or whatever. It's just it's a bit of a messy situation regardless, but that's actually a very good workaround to knowing the actual size. Yeah. Like the next category that again I think makes sense is e-commerce apps and the visualization properties that it has. In which case, placing, I've actually done that, place the sofa in my room or something, and it worked good enough for me to know that that wouldn't fit or whatever. That's nice. And then the other one that's also very nice is trying virtual shoes on, which again is something that's doable. You can figure out this is a foot and the inclination, and put the 3D shoe model in a perfect position and kind of obfuscate your foot behind it. That should work, and it works, and it provides value. And then this works and it provides value. So being able to try clothes on without having to go to the store, and especially with online kind of clothes buying and fashion, fast fashion being such a big thing right now. this makes perfect sense, right?
This can only be used for selecting the outline.
Yeah, exactly.
But not for the sizes.
No, that's true.
It's
That's
still
true.
very bad.
That's true. Although people that tend to buy often clothes, they know their size.
Yeah.
Like particularly for that specific outlet, they know what fits them. But yeah, I mean that's true. Then the next one that makes sense, and I'm listing all of these because we'll get to gaming at the end, and why I think gaming doesn't really make that much sense on mobile AR. Visualization for education and training apps. Again, you can do stuff that you couldn't otherwise. It's a nice way to actually get a bit of an insight into what you're reading about, or into something that it would be harder to interact with otherwise, right? So again, it's like an instant. Again, especially if you have like a QR code reader that opens up the app immediately and shows you the model. That's something that actually can provide a lot of value to whoever's reading it. And then stuff like this, which is also, I don't have the enterprise section, but also like in enterprise, this can be useful, although in that case it's more often like a combination of some wearable for training purposes that you can do like dangerous situations or simulate dangerous situations with AR goggles basically that you couldn't otherwise. Next up, entertainment and gaming. And here, I mean, it seems as though as the value is just like a wow factor, right? I've seen a few games that actually had reason to have AR in there. It's just like it's just like a wow factor or something that would differentiate the game from everybody else. Everybody that you mentioned like AR gaming to, first thing that comes to mind obviously is Pokemon Go. Like fun fact, 2019 was the most lucrative year for Pokemon Go. They made like a bunch of money, more than in 2018 and more than in 2017, so it's still a successful game. But the thing is that it's not really an AR game, right? Because again, for I think about 90% of the people, and that was a statistic from a year ago or something like that, they all turn off the AR, right? So at that point, it's a location-based game where you have to go to a location to actually be able to get your Pokemon, but AR is really like a very, very small part of the whole game, and it's not really, it's false to say that it kind of shows that there's a place for AR in gaming, at least not in this context, right? And here's like an interesting comment on Reddit when they added this AR toggle, and I think that at some point they had like a default AR view, and like there was a discussion how everybody panicked that they're going to force this AR mode and how they're going to stop playing the game if that's the case, because they just don't want to do that, right? Because it's impractical and it's not nice. And then you have games like this, which begs the question: why is that in AR? Because that could easily not be in AR, right? It's a battle game. I haven't played it. It's obviously, I mean, it's probably awful by the way it looks, or it plays awful or something. Because most AR games play awful. But I'm sure that those resources trying to put it in AR would be much better spent other places, right? And then games like this, which are nice, but again, are not the kind of games that need AR specifically. Although I think that games that take environment into account, like games that actually allow you to make the environment a part of your play space, actually make most sense, right? Something that would take your table and convert it into something and then allow you to interact with that stuff. That's something that you can't really do in like without AR, and in AR that's possible. So like games that are environment, like interaction with the environment and environment physics and stuff like that, I think would make sense. But again, games like this don't, right? Because it's a robot fighting game and you don't need AR for that. It's just don't. So yeah, but it does provide wow factor, right? And wow factor plus time is given. Right? That's what happens. So if it's, wow, it's amazing right now, it's the first time I see it, but then after you play it for a week, it's just boring. And the next game you try, and it uses the same kind of trick or mechanic, it's just boring. So while I'm bashing on AR right now, heavily, I think, I don't want to be, like I really want for that to be the case. And like it's going to happen at some point, and this is like a Illumix, that's a startup from, I think I've learned about it 4 years ago, something like that. Obviously, they've sold this idea to some investors. It's a San Francisco startup, about that this could be the future of AR. And I still think that this is the future of AR. It's just that it's 10 years from now, maybe 15 or 20 even. And even at that point, the games will have to be heavily designed, with AR in mind, and it will require completely different ways of thinking about, the game mechanics and how do you redeploy that game to a different environment. Does it like automatically understand, that's a desk, that's a chair or something, and then place this thing? It's just, it's so many things need to work right for that to actually make sense to the player, to actually enjoy the game, obviously. But this is going to be tough. But at some point, I really hope we got that. It's just that it's kind of, it could, or it can be unfair to developers or to people who want to invest their time and effort basically in this, to hype this up too much, because then it just ends up being a waste of time, or like, too soon or something. So regarding AR, see you in 2030, maybe 2035 or 2040.
But still, it's good to have such a commercials, such a visions, because this pulls the money to the if you wouldn't have it, it just wouldn't.
I mean, the bad part I think is basically
you got the progress in you have the progress in development.
So the bad part I think here is like, and that's all. It's not unfair to developers as much as it's probably unfair to investors who put a lot of money in there, right? But like saying that that's going to happen in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, where I mean, like every person that's aware of the hardware limitations of what it means to actually be able to provide that kind of a vision, knows that that's just 10 years off, or even 15 or something like that. Because it's just, there's no tech right now that would be able to provide for that kind of experience. And Magic Leap is a perfect example of that. Like the vision that they sold and then the product that they provided, I mean, again, it's awesome progress and it's very nice, but it's just not consumer grade and it's not ready for prime time, and it's not going to be for a while now. And while they were like talking to developers and trying to get developers on to actually invest their time and effort into this, and having programs and it's kind of disingenuous a bit to actually try to push for that. And I mean, other than that, I totally get that, and it's amazing that that money is being put in. And I guess that now that we get to VR, because my opinion basically is that this stuff is converging anyway. Like AR and VR, I mean, right now it might be two different things, but I guess that when we get to that point, like when it gets that crazy, it'll probably be just one device, right? It'll be one device that you'll be able to, like, either, or maybe two devices because you need to occlude the whole face or something, but it'll be very similar in terms of experience. And whatever progress is being made with VR right now, I feel is going to translate into AR anyway, because it's a very similar kind of tech. You need to do like SLAM, like simultaneous localization and mapping. You need to understand the space. You need to understand objects around you. I mean, this tech obviously has to, right? And what kind of gets me excited about what's happening in this space right now is what's happened in 2019 with Oculus Quest, because it's the first kind of device that I've seen like break through into the mainstream enough to, like, again, make me think that it's worth my time, right? I feel like there's enough people buying this stuff, enough people appreciating the value, and being like willing to spend the time to actually get to know it and get to love it, that it actually makes sense for us to like invest our time and effort into trying to build something for it. And it was an amazing experience, like putting that on my dad, which is now 70 years old, and he took about 3 minutes and he was like fully proficient in it, right? Which is insane. And I think that it's the same thing that iPhone did for mobile devices as the first like truly intuitive mobile device, right? And the first iPhone, I mean, right? VR needed something like this, something that you just put in your hand, VR or AR. In that case, it's just, again, I think it's the same tech ultimately down the road, right? But it needed something that's as intuitive and as easy to actually work with, that it would kind of break those barriers to get into like general population and make regular people excited about that tech. Putting up lighthouses lighthouses?
Yeah.
And setting up your play space and having a PC strong enough to run that awesome, but it's not for 95% of the people. That's the problem. And that's like a nice comparison of Google Trends when you put in Oculus and VR, right? And what happened when Quest was released. So that's the bump for Oculus and then the bump for VR. And that's the amazing part, right? What one device can do for the whole industry. Like the interest that it generates basically in VR in general. Then obviously you have like Christmas and Black Friday.
No. You have the
Black Friday.
Half-Life announcement.
Oh yeah, Half-Life announcement. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Alex thing. Yeah. But that's, I mean, it's nice to see those kinds of trends when you actually are passionate about like those kinds of technologies and the opportunities for creating like really immersive experiences. Because I mean, you need users who have like those devices and who want to actually play the experiences that you create. Because otherwise, what are you doing? Like playing for creating stuff for yourself, I guess. I mean, it's nice, but it's better if somebody else actually appreciates it and uses it. So this would be, I mean, that's the way I see VR, and I think that there's no like cutoff point as I do feel for mobile AR versus whatever is going to happen with AR in the future, right? So VR right now has had already the bumpy ride, and I think is now like at the slope of enlightenment, which means that it'll get better, the adoption will get better, the content will get better, and at some point it'll just reach a point where we'll know what to expect from it in terms of the capabilities that it provides, and the users will know what to expect from it in terms of content and like the experiences that they can have.
The only thing with this graph is that you have to realize that it's not just one hype cycle. This is actually repeating all over the time. But it's just the hype school.
Yeah, that's like a very averaged out, like or softened basically. That's, by the way, it's Gartner's. This is it's a house that actually evaluates markets or whatever. Not sure how to put it in English. But they have like each year they have this graph with a bunch of tech and markets that they kind of say, okay, so this tech is now here, this tech is now here. If you buy their predictions. But anyway, it's a useful tool, and more often than not, it does turn out to be true. Still, there are some technical limitations with VR, which, again, in some cases, especially maybe in this one, I kind of feel is also an advantage, because knowing, like as a developer, when you're creating something, knowing that when you deploy, it will be deployed to a specific set of hardware is much easier than creating an experience for AR, which has 10,000 different devices that you can play on. A bunch of different environments that will be used in and so on. Whereas with VR, basically, there is no, you can very easily predict basically how that game's going to work and how that whole experience is going to play out. But that's one limitation. The other one, kind of, is the performance, which also is not really all that true anymore, I guess. Because we have the Oculus Quest, and that is a standalone headset. Yeah, by the way, if you don't know, maybe, just to be clear about this is Oculus Quest. It is a standalone headset, everything is built in, you don't need a PC, it costs $400, and it's basically like a console. So it's maybe it's better than a console because you also got a display with it, right? Whereas you need a TV for PlayStation. But yeah, other than that, there's a Snapdragon 835 chip in there, which is a 2017 chip, basically, which means that it should, if they just put a better chip in it, they already have an upgrade. But it's a mobile SoC grade.
Also has a battery.
Yeah, also has a battery, of course. Yeah. So basically, you can play it for 2.5 hours on a single charge. You can take it to your friends. Do a bunch of cool stuff.
If you're not satisfied with the graphics, you can now connect it.
You can connect it to yeah. So you have Oculus Link, you can connect it. It's not, I mean, that's details. It's awesome, but you can see some compression artifacts. But otherwise, it's amazing. So yeah, performance still a bit of an issue for headsets that do not have standalone capability. But the more, I guess, the UX limitations are the more troubling ones. That's a strong word, but still something that needs to be considered. And one is they do require play space, right? Although, honestly, most of the games, the good games that are designed also for seating mode, so you can sit and play it, right? You don't have to walk around to play it. Although, obviously, you still need a play space to be able to take full advantage of a headset. The other one is uncomfortable for long sessions. And I'm not sure how we're going to fix that, honestly, other than having super light headset, again, 5, 6, 7 years in the future.
Panasonic introduced them with headsets, like that big, like that big goggles.
How big are they?
I don't know.
So it's not really.
Yeah, it's not really the same.
Yeah.
So like Oculus Go.
Okay.
The corporate device is more interesting in this regard, but also it's not really, like those devices are more oriented for video, not for games.
Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, that's gonna get solved at some point, right? But it's just a matter of time. And as of right now, it's not. I mean, I've never played anything longer than 2 hours, I think. And the third one is movement can cause nausea. And I mean, this is that one might be harder to get over. I mean, not really, but maybe, because the thing is that, you know, VR being such a crazy, immersive, and nice, like medium or whatever platform, you want to do crazy stuff with it, but as soon as you do crazy stuff with it, people get sick, right? Because if you move too freely, if you have like too much motion, there's a bunch of games that you would think would work awesome in VR, but they can't, because, you know, as soon as you lift off on a rocket or, you know, jump off a cliff or whatever, you're just gonna get sick. So there's a bunch of consideration that needs to be kind of put into the game actually in terms of how that, you know, movement is solved and you know, what's the role of you as a player basically in the game, because there are a bunch of games again that are sitting games that don't really, that are not first person and you don't really get sick.
But this might be solved by pharmaceuticals.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I've never thought of that though. Yeah. That's a good point.
Like kills the sickness.
Yeah. All right. Although there was that's an interesting story. I think it was last week, Thursday, something like that. We had a game night at my place, and there was a wife of a friend tried out the Oculus Quest for the first time, and I mean, everybody says like, don't give people roller coaster rides or stuff like that for their first try, right? And we didn't. But then the second thing that she tried was the Richie's plank, like the plank walk you do, right? And that was already, sorry?
Yeah, the plank and to jump down.
To go, and then that went somewhat well, and then she got the rocket booster or whatever that she can fly, and she almost fell like to the ground, and then I took the helmet off her and she was crying, which is, I mean, like she was so scared that she just had like a, you know, near-death experience basically. I mean, it kind of shows what the tech is capable of, and also like how much vision is, you know, a part of your perception of everything basically. It's you know, you're standing on the ground, you know, you're in a room full of friendly people, but then you hit a building and, you know, it's just like massive heart attack situation. Anyway, yeah. Having said that, like, because these were like the considerations with VR, I think that the most important part that VR has done right is input fidelity. And that's the fact that, you know, when you put the helmet on and when you're in that space and when you look down and you see your hands, it's actually the movement translates one-to-one, and the frequency of updates of that movement is fast enough for you to actually, you know, mistake that for your own hand. So again, going back to that example for, you know, what iPhone, the first version of iPhone did for touchscreen smartphones, the like intuitiveness of movement and the response time of, you know, touching and something happening on a screen was so fast that it actually it created that, like, you know, feeling of actually interacting with something that's real and not digital. And it's the same thing with VR, and that's not really Oculus Quest, like particularly, but all like the latest VR headsets have that kind of fidelity, and this is yeah, I mean, like being able to actually interact with very small objects and do, like, you know, that kind of stuff is actually pretty crazy. And I think that's one of the things that will actually, well, does that work? Yeah, here we go. Anyway, you might have seen that. That's from Steam's index. Yeah, which has like a much more precise finger tracking and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's the most important part that VR is doing right. And also one of the things that I think is super hard to do in AR, because I'm not sure if we had that slide, but still, like translating 2D movements into 3D space is just hard. I mean, it's unintuitive. Like walking on the screen, yeah, I'm trying to pinch something or touch something that's, you know, in 3D space, and then I'm not sure how Minecraft AR is going to work, right? Because then, you know, you'll be on your phone and you'll try to place something on the ground and then build on top of that. I can't imagine that being super intuitive. And again, VR solves that because it's, I mean, the input is basically kind of the input that you're used to. It's hands and it's the you know, the normal motion that we're all used to from, like, every day. So that's kind of the slow ending on the presentation. but it's the kind of the key stuff that I think VR has the most like insane potential for. And one of them obviously is immersive storytelling, and luckily there's enough content right now to be able to try that stuff out. So it's not something that I think is a good like fit for VR, but I kind of know, or at least my experience with VR is such that, you know, that little mouse actually makes me feel things. Like it's just that nice, you know, seeing like a little creature reacting to what you're doing and to your gestures and so on. If you haven't played it, that's Moss. Basically, it's a platformer. It's a pretty basic game, but the animations of the mouse are so insanely well done that it actually feels like, you know, he's talking to you or interacting with you or being like disappointed or, you know, needing your help and stuff like that. And because you are in his world, you're like a god or whatever, it actually feels like super immersive. So I think that in terms of storytelling, that's really like one of the more powerful aspects of VR, actually being able to convey that emotion and being able to like put you in, you know, on the spot. The other one is environmental puzzle games, or also, I guess you could call them escape games. I Expect You to Die is one of them. An awesome like escape game where you have like a bunch of situations where you're locked into somewhere and you need to figure out how to get out. This is like the first level. It's in a car. This is a speed run, and it's basically a hack. So this guy completed it in 9 seconds, right? Which shouldn't happen, but it did. Yeah, so that's like a really nice use case because you are in the space, you are sitting down. You don't have to be standing and walking around. You just need to reach out and, you know, figure stuff out and just escape basically. So if you're into that kind of games, this I Expect You to Die is pretty cool. Active in fitness. This, I mean, confession time. I haven't really been too active for a long time. And then I tried out the Box VR. So this is Beat Saber, by the way. Pretty much everybody knows about this probably by now, because it's the VR game that gets posted everywhere. It's just like the poster child for VR.
Facebook bought the company, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, like recently. Yeah, and then we have Box VR, which is my daily exercise now. So every morning I do like 30 to 45 minutes of Box VR to get to the end, super sweaty. I supposedly burn about 500 calories, which that's probably bullshit, but anyway. I mean, it's a number probably, to be super exaggerated or something. But again, I've never had the courage to actually do like morning exercise or anything like that, and the fact that a game like that can actually do that for me is amazing, right? It's just like, again, it's a personal experience thing, but the fact that I can now, I'm happy to actually spend 45 minutes shadowboxing, is what it's called otherwise. If you're not using VR, it's shadowboxing, and it's something that people boxing do regularly, like you're just, you know, boxing in the air. But it's a super nice, you know, kind of exercise that actually, by being gamified, like makes you actually want to do it more often than if it wasn't. And then the third one, and also, like it's weird, but playing poker in VR is amazing. Like, the whole experience of like having to look at your cards and, you know, like there's a bunch of people around you who have obviously VoIP and they're talking and doing crazy stuff, and there's, I mean, this is PokerStars VR. There's another game I think as well. And then you can buy like a whole bunch of different stuff, like guns and cigars and vapes and small donkeys and whatever. It's just like, it's ridiculous. And then people buy stuff for you, and it's, yeah, I mean, it's weird, but in a very real way, it feels like you're actually socializing, right? You're sitting at a desk, and also a good case for VR in general, like you actually don't need that much. Like for games like this, you sit at a desk, like everybody else sit at their desk, and then you feel like you're actually playing poker, right? You look to your right, you have a mate there, and there's a bunch of other people who are laughing and, you know, singing or whatever. There was a guy like a week ago who started in the middle of the session, started walking around the desk and singing "Save the World, Make it a Better Place," and then he bought 2 lighters and he was like waving his lighters left and right. Like, just a ridiculous situation, but you know, I was laughing out loud, and I haven't laughed out loud because of a game so much, like probably in a while now. So yeah, people say that VR is not a social platform, and I say bullshit to that. I mean, it's super social. It's just not the kind of social that we're used to, right? And then it begs the question whether that's healthy or not. but that's for somebody else to answer, not for me. It's enjoyable for sure.
I mean, this one would be much better than playing regular poker on the regular screen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, in terms of digital poker, this is much better. Yeah.
And it's even probably better for the houses that are offering to play the poker, because you get the power players only play and concentrate on one game. Playing 60 tables at once.
You have to focus. And you also have chips, and you take chips and you throw them on, and if you fold, you throw the cards on the table. And it's a very it's a visceral experience. It's not, it's just amazing. It's scary how amazing it is actually. And then you have like this big screen cinema, which is a fairly recent thing, I think. But anyway, you can go to the cinema with your friends. And then basically you just sit in a chair, you can buy popcorn or whatever and watch movies, and they're now like planning to actually release new movies in the cinema in VR. So instead of going to the actual cinema, you'll just sit on your couch along with your mates and you'll watch a cinema and do stupid stuff.
Apparently this concept is actually movies are scheduled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to attend it.
True. Yeah. Really. So basically, there's scarcity involved with it. Yeah, there's like it's a timed event because you have to. Is that mine? Yeah. Sorry. Here we go. Let me just lock this. Anyway, it's okay. Excuse me. Yeah, but this is also one of those crazy things where obviously it's a social thing, right? And again, it's scary because it's so fun, but anyway.
So it's everybody is a VR person.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And you bring sound also to everybody.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and
and you can throw popcorn too.
Yeah. And Oculus Quest has a built-in mic, and then you can just talk to people if you want. I guess hopefully you can mute other people so you don't have to start watching the movie. But still, it's I guess it's fun. VR chat is another one, which is a crazy one. I mean, it's exactly what it says it is. It's a chat room for VR, but then you get in and you have like your own avatar. You can build stuff. If you know Roblox, it's kind of trying to be Roblox. There's another VR game that I forget the name of. Sorry? Rec Room? Yeah, Rec Room, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Rec Room is another one which is more, I guess, like Roblox, and then Facebook is launching Horizon, which is another like Roblox-like game. It's so VR. But again, it's a super fun social experience. You get in there. I mean, obviously it's not for me; it's for kids for the most part, I think. But it's a very nice social experience, doing stuff together. Building worlds, destroying them, making games, and stuff like that. So yeah. When somebody says like VR is a very lonely experience or something like that, I don't buy that. I mean, I did buy that for a while until I figured out that that's just not the case. And then we have a couple of ones that are just weird. And I say that because I kind of like that. The fact that VR created that some content creators or some game creators just found license or took license to create just weird stuff, right? And if you've tried this, Accounting Plus, I don't have any footage of that, but it's just a weird game. Like there's a bunch of weird characters shouting at you in profanities, and like you're doing. You find yourself in a space and you don't know what you're doing, and then you're stabbing some guy, and then you figure out that was the nicest guy in the world, but it was the blob of something. And there's another game. Oh yeah. So is it this one? No, I don't have a video. But anyway, in Accounting Plus, it's a VR in a VR game. So basically the first thing you do is like you put on a VR headset in VR, and then you're transported in another VR world, right? So again, there are a couple of different games that are really like going crazy with the way that, and the creators of this game, I think, are the creators of Rick and Morty, if I'm not mistaken. So there's some like people that actually do know how to create crazy stuff, that are creating crazy stuff, and I really like that. I mean, the fact that they're like pushing the limits of what would be considered normal or acceptable in these kinds of games is kind of nice to me. And this one, which is a job simulator, in which you are working a job. And you're in an office, and you're doing stuff, and you get like instructions by a computer, and you have to print stuff, and
Google bought this company.
Yeah, they did? Nice. But yeah, like that, again, it's a crazy concept, but it's very fun, and obviously these are not games that are gonna have like hundreds of hours of playtime, or even 10, right?
I think it's Guinness World Records by playing the longest VR 24 something hours.
In this one, oh, that's great.
Set a year ago.
There's like 4 or 5
Could be something else.
jobs.
So that person had to go to the toilet while playing this game.
I can't
You're just there.
Yeah, maybe she just went to the office toilet, right?
That's like
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I mean that's one other thing that I really like about VR in general. That some people or some game creators did take license to actually create some pretty crazy stuff. And it's not just like your generic stuff that is very obvious for VR. The fact that you are a person, or in this case, I'm not sure what you are in this game. Like I guess like a character or something. But the fact that it's a very personal experience, and stuff that's talking to you feels very personal. And in Accounting Plus, you just get like dumped on all the time, and it's just weird. Like it puts you in that weird mental spot, and it's fun and it's weird, and then it's fun and so on. So yeah, that's in terms of the types of games that I've kind of noticed and tried to narrow it down to what I feel like is a fun type of experience. That's that, and now let's get to the conclusion part. Again, like big asterisk. I really want for AR to succeed, right? And I really love the fact that you can create like worlds in the real world, and that there's this upcoming layer of information, but also layer of fun and games that are going to happen in our soon future or whatever. But more importantly, in our environments, this world can do with more fun, I think. But we have to wait for AR glasses, I think, right? The phones are not going to do that for us. The Google Daydream project kind of failed completely, where they tried to do the VR on a phone. Luckily, it didn't really catch, and now Facebook kind of did that with Oculus Quest, I think. And I feel like VR will kind of pave the way for whatever is the future of all of that, like the whole VR AR space, because at some point, the tech is so similar that it's going to start converging, and what's also like awesome, I think, that if you're now, like diving deep into VR dev and creating VR content, that experience will easily transfer to AR as well. Because creating those interactions in virtual worlds versus creating those interactions in real worlds, I think there's not a big difference in terms of the tech behind it. Whereas obviously game design is a different story. So in AR, I think that we'll have to completely rethink what a game is to actually make it work, especially because it does like incorporate your environment into the game. And yeah, that's the last prediction. Eventually, AR and VR will merge. I think that will happen. And one piece of advice, or two, don't join the hype train too soon. I did that twice. it didn't pay off. I mean, I know a lot of stuff. And take educated risks with working with emerging tech. But do take risks. I think that's important. I mean, you have to try stuff out, even if it's too early or whatever. I think that kind of gets me personally up at night, right? Or up in the morning. Keeps me up at night. And if I didn't do that, even though I might have taken the hype train sometime too soon or whatever, it's that kind of stuff that actually pulls me along. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening. So if you want to have a discussion now, we can, or yeah. Any questions? Any comments?
Have you seen the game T for God?
T for God?
Yes. It's a big quest, not a side quest to be specific.
No, I haven't.
It's a bit closer to our topic today, I would say, because it uses your actual play space to create an, how do you call it? An non-Euclidean geometry world.
Okay.
So maybe you see some of those. You have sort of a maze.
T for God.
A maze, yeah, T for God. So you move around the game actually walking in your play space,
Okay.
but you get to move around a whole bunch of other environments by the fact that the tunnels are not actually, so you have to intersect the tunnels, but they actually exist completely irrelevant from each other.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's like, I think the one game that actually does it.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah.
For a while, but
I'll write it in my notes app. Yeah. Awesome. T for God.
yep.
Okay. Cool.
And you can get it for free.
Because it's on the side quest, right?
Yep.
I mean, legally for free or?
No, you can get it for free.
Okay, nice. T for God. Any other questions?
I would make a comment about that type chart. It would be interesting to transpose on with the content, not only the tech devices. The content actually is the one that saves it from the deep of this sort and what was the forgetting. As an example, I think that just announcing the Half-Life, Alex, the free version, good, and it depends on the content itself, but we're expecting a lot, and if that actually provides the satisfaction for the real gamers, I think
it'll be a big boost to VR.
There wouldn't be an issue with the hardware and the other devices.
I think that the hype curve, right? I think it has more to do with like consumer adoption, right? So like content definitely plays a role there, but it's just it wouldn't show up on there. It would just show up as a result in how how much adoption the actual tech got. So it would actually affect the movement on that curve for sure.
In that way. That's right. Currently, I don't think that there's a reason for a casual gamer or even a progressive gamer to buy VR. Just try it. To a demo room, you can try it and have fun. If there is proper content designed for VR, because it's about how you move in space, how you actually enjoy the
True. I mean, it's there's little like practical reason for somebody to jump into VR right now, other than like its novelty and it's becoming affordable, right? But I think that as soon as you try it out once, and I think everybody has their own their own killer app in VR, because I'm sure that other people who are excited about VR would name different games or something that like stuck for them, right? So I think it's one of those things that you have to try out and then see if it works for you, I guess, right? But like intentionally, like knowing this will be awesome for you, that's hard right now, probably.
So what would your comment be regarding one of the major developers leaving the VR? John?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he just got fed up with it. I mean, there's like, it's kind of weird because I know that Facebook or Oculus basically had like a prediction for when hand tracking is going to be like implemented, and it said 2021. Right?
But it's done already.
Exactly. So it feels like my point being that it feels like the progress is actually happening faster in some ways than what it was predicted, right?
The tech is there. So it's not about getting a different, faster, more performant device. The tech is there for half a year.
I mean, I think that the next jump in headsets, or the large jump in or some large resolution or whatever in resolution or in some other way will happen in 21, 22 maybe, right? The Quest will be probably the headset of 2020, and then in 2021 maybe they'll upgrade the hardware a bit, like with the new processor, and then any kind of optical upgrades will probably come in 2022, right? Because that part I think is the hardest to actually iterate on. Like everything else is easier to do, but actually getting optics better and getting more pixels into smaller densities and provide that on a scale where you can sell 100,000 pieces per month.
Have you tried any of those really expensive ones, Vario or something like that?
No, I've tried the Valve Index. That's the most, like the best I've tried that. But
when you go above 2K or less, you see that the tech is there.
Well, that's good news. Then it's up to us to actually make something out of it.
Create the content. And one remark with the AR thing, if it wasn't only about the impressing investors with the jumping whales videos, there's definitely hundreds of interesting applications for the already, so for the toy creators that are already well established. So anyone can think of Monopoly being augmented or some board games. Those are actually the markets for.
But that also I think would need a headset. Like well, like holding a phone like that while you play Monopoly, I don't see that.
You can share the experience how great hotel you actually have.
You know what?
You take a look at it. And then
Yeah. Like maybe, because one of those things that's kind of AR, but not really, or I guess it is, I don't know, is like if you have like a TV in a room and a camera pointing at the board, and then you would be playing normal Monopoly and looking at the TV, you would see crazy stuff happening on the board. So that seems like a more reasonable, because it's a shared experience and it's something that you can all look at. But the phone as a form factor for looking at stuff like that, it's just weird.
I think that there was a successful Kickstarter campaign last year with the board game and a set of glasses, inexpensive.
Yeah, they do have that. Yeah.
I think they actually managed.
I think they have like some cool tech in it as well, like some weird projection that made them super light or something. I actually read an article on that. Yeah. I mean, again, definitely AR is as, if not more exciting as a concept in the future, but it's just that, to get it to a point where, and one other limitation of AR, which hasn't yet been solved and nobody knows how we're going to solve it, is how do you make pixels black, right? Because right now it's only transparent, like that's what you can get out of it, and how exactly you're going to get the optics to actually just block out the light. I mean, nobody has an idea about that. So
by strapping cameras to the other headset.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's how the technology is already
exactly. Yeah. And that's why I think it's going to like converge at some point, because they're just going to block the whole view and then replace it with a video or whatever, like a pass-through.
So the company, so one of those more expensive glasses, Vario, as I mentioned.
Vario has that.
They actually started from that.
They were at the conference last year. You could try them, it's amazing.
Yeah, the idea was they actually made a simulator for Volvo. So there was guys sitting inside of a moving car, driving the car, so turning the wheel, and looking through the VR glasses with cameras on top of the VR glasses, looking at the real world, and then transposing a new car dashboard on top of the old one.
So he was basically driving a virtual car while driving a real car. That's insane.
What was the field of view?
They actually put the cameras, the camera jig was on top of the car. Outside, and they piped the video for the outside from outside of the car. The idea was they were testing all the reachability of the new car stereo buttons and how would you react if an animal would jump on the street and you see some projection.
Well, that's
check it out. Definitely something.
Awesome. Yeah, we have pass-through on the Oculus as well, but it's just like a black and white. I mean, that's not the use case, obviously. But it's there. Yeah, if you're going to go get a cup of coffee or something, you can just stand up and go.
What about Magic Leap and HoloLens?
Magic Leap.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it was nice. I mean, it was. I tried it for about 15 minutes, and it was, I guess, the demo that you had some plans and some things that you're like, I don't know, you can place things in space and it'll stay there, and it's but again, the fact that you can't have black stuff, so everything is slightly translucent, right? So that's really, it's a striking like feature or property of Magic Leap as is right now. And that's the only AR headset I think I tried. No, I've tried some other at exhibitions, but none of them were.
They're installed.
Yeah, they are. For real?
Already? For a month already.
That's bad. Okay, that's really bad.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's how you push something for investors.
I mean, nobody wants that. Yeah. Because they were the poster child of AR stuff. That's unfortunate. But it kind of goes to show, that betting too soon or on something that's, because again, the hardware, like everybody who's in the business, I think knew that the hardware is just not there, like for consumer grade electronics or AR, it just wasn't. So I don't know what they were thinking, but I guess I saw the pitch deck for the first pitch deck that they raised, the first, I don't know, 100 million or something for the Magic Leap. it's just dreams. It's just like a bunch of bullet points that sound amazing, but again, anybody to do anything new that this wouldn't be doable for a while now.
I mean, still, we are fortunate that Microsoft is putting
for sure,
effort because they put now HoloLens 2 out, and I mean, it's available for developers so far.
I mean, Microsoft is taking all sorts of risks like that. I mean, even with Kinect and stuff like that, it's just.
I mean, Kinect has converged to enterprise now, to cloud.
And also, the tech that was done for Kinect is now used for headset tracking and all that stuff is basically kind of turned around, right?
But you have it now for enterprise Kinect. You can buy it for sensors inside the rooms and for detection in industry and so on. So.
Yeah, one of the best use cases, that's another funny story, kind of the screen that I built for the shopping center, Hidden Ground. The best thing about it at the end was the fact that it could count the number of visitors that came and went out of the store. They really found that data very useful. Like they could kind of predict the patterns of when people were coming and going. And that's actually the use case that kind of prevailed out of all the work that went into creating a somewhat intuitive interface for interacting with that screen. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean that's how it turns out. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What about having an AR headset all the time?
Yeah.
Having an ad blocker, so all the posters.
I mean, that's
right salami, back salami in towns and half off, but you don't see this, you see something else.
If nothing else, that's why I can't wait for AR, enough. Because with all the air stuff that you see all over Blana that I absolutely hate, I would love to put my dog on every one of those posters. Yeah. Just enjoy my walk. Very, very calming experience. Yeah, I mean,
maybe a bit more predatory or malicious, how they say, VR, just about porn these days. So what if you have an AR that then on fly, makes all the people naked?
That would make conversations extremely uncomfortable, though.
What does this then bring to the?
I mean, honestly,
including someone's rights, but it's not their. I mean, they have the right, to be respected.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody. True. Then it's just simulation, it's not real, but then again, it is real. It affects people, So what does this then bring,
I mean, entertaining all of those extreme thoughts about AR, it's insane. Yeah, I mean, once you get into those edge, it's not even an edge case. It's probably something that's going to happen, right? It just becomes crazy, and I don't know, because so many things, you'll be able to just change on the fly, right? Things that you don't like, the appearance of your loved one or whatever. Let's say your wife gets old, you'll make her younger for 20 years, right? And she'll do the same for you. It's just like,
it's probably cheaper than
all of a sudden you look like Brad Pitt or something, and she'll be able to buy a skin for you. So, I mean, yeah, or a hat, yeah. A funny hat, and then she'll love you again. That's a very good point, but it's a crazy, it opens up all sorts of crazy.
Or maybe like an application for really religious people.
Yeah.
You don't like to see other people, showing their skin off.
That's awesome, though. Yeah.
And I mean, maybe to bring world peace or something.
Yeah, good. That's a good point. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion how VR will end scarcity, right? Because at some point, or AR maybe, I don't know, but either or, everybody with AR, everybody can have a Ferrari, right? And everybody can have a huge house with a huge OLED display or something.
With great view.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that actually, I mean, jokingly or not, it can actually solve a lot of those problems, right? In terms of being envious of your neighbor because they have a better whatever, right? You'll just be able to just buy it or torrent it, I guess.
Zuckerberg has a better point on that, in that AR is expected to reduce the cost of property because currently the main reason why everything costs so much in the cities, because the only work opportunities are there. But if you can work in the exact same way from remotely, which for most jobs is the case, then that will bring it down.
And I mean,
more realistic.
have you seen the Facebook face tracking stuff for video conferencing? I mean, because that's one of the things that also like I feel like super impressive. Because, again, everybody has a desk. Being able to sit, behind the desk, you can feel the desk, and so all those things are there. But then the headset being able to track all of your features and movements and all that, you will actually have a meeting with people looking around, talking to them, having a board, drawing ideas and stuff like that.
And on the other hand, you can present yourself in distraction-free environment.
True.
So just put headset on, you put the headset on it.
So the world outside can be burning, and you can have fun.
There's a nice scientific paper that would recognize the facial expression just from the pictures you could take it inside the headset. Normally, if you're wearing a VR headset, obviously you cannot just take a picture. You don't even see half your face. So just from the picture of your eyes and cheeks inside the headset, they would reconstruct the whole thing.
The Facebook demo was really impressive.
Scientific paper, I just read them all.
I mean, the research scientists from Facebook have also published the same program. And they used it for reconstruction.
I mean, they have a video, like it's basically like live, real-time interpolation of facial features.
That's impressive.
It's super impressive. It's crazy.
Virtual avatars.
The business model behind is actually marketing. To evaluate A/B testing for products. So you get real response
from users, right?
And just one point on those Ferraris and neighbors. There is a special focus group which benefits extremely from VR, and that's disabled.
True, absolutely.
That's definitely something that's amazing for them to
experience things that they wouldn't be able to experience otherwise. True. And there's, less important obviously, but still, I know there's there was even like a stupid article, but still, like putting VR headsets in cows that are in industrial farming facilities, and they increased milk production and were like generally considered to be happier because they were like shown grasslands and stuff like that through VR headsets. You're opening up stuff that we can talk about, like I think for hours, but because the things that this will bring, like this is not even like if it happens, it'll happen. We all know it'll happen, and I guess it's worthless to say we'll see what happens and let's try to build a better future, because all the crazy stuff will happen anyway. But in the meantime, I think it's an awesome opportunity to create like crazy stuff and very immersive worlds, and for great storytelling and very high emotional impact because of the like very visceral, immersive nature of VR. Right? It just feels like you're there, and whatever damage you do to a person in VR, it feels very real. Right? It's not as easy as in flat games, or they're called flat games. It's very hard not to empathize, whatever, with whatever's going on in VR. It's hard to ignore it, so that's good. All right, thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Franci, for an amazing talk and discussion. And now I will invite you to the Kino Šiška for drinks.